So this week we're looking at guitars, and we're looking at pedals and shaping our tone. So we were talking to James Nicholson, who is one of the guitarists at Coventry Elim, and so he talked us through different ways of shaping your tone and making sure that your tone sounds right. I was really excited to share this video with you. Check it out. This is Thread. Today we're going to be talking every guitarist's dream. We're going to be talking pedals and tone and stuff like that, which is fun times. And you're appropriately dressed as well.
Yes, come on. Repping that pedal show.
Come on. Nice.
Please let me come visit.
Yeah. One of my favorite guitar shows.
Yeah.
Amazing. Let's start with the basics. Let's start pedals. Why would a guitarist need pedals?
Sure.
I mean, you have your instrument, you have your amp. Why would you need pedals?
Yeah, so pedals are a great way to expand the sort of tones that you've got available. Plugging into most amps, it might just be a clean guitar sound. You might have an amp with a distortion channel or maybe a built-in reverb, but that's quite limiting. Particularly in worship music, we use a lot of delay. We use several different gain stages normally.
Yeah.
So pedals are a really great way to be able to control effects at a moment's notice. You can turn it on and off. You don't have to go back to an amp and turn a bunch of knobs.
Yeah.
Just opens up a really wide palette of tones to use, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Only so much that you can do with an amp.
Yeah.
In terms of shaping your tone, but then your pedals definitely take you to another.
Yeah, and generally the quality of pedals, the quality of sounds you'll get from a pedal, particularly delays, reverbs, modulations, they're going to be much better than you would get in like an amp, something like a Line 6 Spider.
Yeah.
And that's really a feature you get on more beginner amps. When you get to maybe slightly more professional, then those features are taken away anyway, so at that point you would need a pedal in order to have that sound at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk us through if I was starting out and I just needed to play for church and I'm playing for worship. You've talked about obviously a lot of these videos we're doing for people who are involved in music in church, and we talk about delay, we talk about reverb and compression. One thing that I've never really understood, but I love when compression is on top of the sound. The basics again. If I was to go out and I'm starting out, what do I need to get?
Sure. So if you're in not most churches, if you're in a church that's playing, I guess, contemporary worship music, then really the basic two effects really are kind of overdrive and delay. And you would consider in your sound having different stages. Generally within drive you might want to have one or two, so that with your clean sound, with your first drive pedal and then your second drive pedal, you've got different levels of overdrive, you've got different levels of dynamics, which in contemporary worship is really important. So a lot of what we're trying to do as guitarists is fit in with the dynamic appropriately. A lot of people don't know what delay is. If I say it's echo, when you go into a long tunnel and you go hello, and you go hello, hello, hello. Delay is another word for echo. Yeah.
And where does that differ from reverb? Because I think sometimes that can be again a bit misconstrued. Yeah.
So reverb is the sound of, and you're probably hearing it now on the audio. Reverb is the sound of reflections in a room. Yeah. It puts you in a physical space, whereas delay is your isolated sound repeated. Would be my 10-second explanation. So delay is particularly useful in making your guitar sound bigger than it actually is. Maybe having a wash of sound or a wall of sound behind the guitar. So delay helps make your guitar sound bigger. on intro kind of riffs and hooks. It just adds a little bit of interest, and it makes the guitar sound linger a little bit longer than it otherwise would. Yeah. And it just fattens everything up a little bit, fills it out, which again, for contemporary worship music, and particularly if you're one guitar player in a band, that can be really important, is to just add a lot of fullness to the sound. Yeah.
Cool. Let's just get into practicality now. Like, just maybe go like, you know, however you want to do it. Like, what's the chain of sound from like clean to, you know, just talk us through like the whole sort of chain.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just play for a second, so you've actually heard some guitar.
Yeah.
So this is my clean tone. So I'm running through my pedal board. None of the pedals are on. I'm going straight into the amp.
You're obviously changing you're changing the different, what do you call it? What is gone?
Gonna let you wait and figure out how long that would take you to get.
That word, James, save me. You're changing your pickups. You're doing a pickup selection there. Obviously, you get different tones from different pickups.
And that's a good point for anyone just starting out with electric guitar and pedals. Actually, you don't need to go out and buy loads of gear, but learning to get the best out of the gear you have and learning all the different tones you can get out of what you currently have is the best thing you can do. So generally on a guitar you would have the neck pickup and the bridge pickup. A lot of guitars will also have a middle pickup, and then I've got my pickup selector here, so I've got just the neck, a blend of both pickups, or just the bridge. And that varies the tone coming out of the guitar before you even go out and buy a pedal. So the neck tends to be warmer, a little bit darker. And if you go all the way to the bridge, that tends to be harsher and a bit brighter. Which, that helps, again, if you can utilize that in a song, maybe for the intro riff, you want to be a bit darker and a bit more subtle. And then maybe if you get into a really big build section, you want some attack, you can flick to the bridge pickup, and already, without getting anything else, you've got a different tone to offer in a different moment of the song.
So that's your clean tone. That's you without any sort of anything in between you and the amp. So then let's go from there now, building onto that.
So if I run you through the signal chain for my pedal board. And I guess we can talk about each effect as we go along as well. So I start with the wah pedal. Generally, wah pedals need to be the first thing in the chain, apart from maybe a fuzz pedal, just because of the way they work. It just works better that way. From there, I run down into my tuner pedal. Most important pedal on the board. It's a mute switch and gets you in tune. If you're not in tune, you need to be in tune.
Absolutely.
So then I run into this blue pedal here, a compressor pedal. And so what a compressor pedal does is, as the name says, it compresses, it squashes the sound. So what it does is it reduces your dynamic range. So once you turn it on, all of your quieter sounds will get a little bit louder, and all of your loudest sounds will get a little bit quieter. So it just keeps your dynamic range more consistent.
Why would that be a good thing?
Yeah, so particularly if you're playing an intro riff and it's a really exposed part, and there's kind of not a lot else happening, maybe there's just a pad underneath you in an acoustic guitar, then it just keeps you really level and consistent in volume. So if you accidentally play one note louder than the other, the congregation aren't necessarily going to hear a big volume jump, which in those really delicate moments is really helpful, just to keep everything nice and consistent. In terms of genres of music, they're quite helpful for things like funk. If you're playing maybe some like Hillsong Young and Free, some of their more like up songs, like praise songs, I guess you might call them, then you might be using a cleaner guitar sound with less drive, so you might want compression on that just to help control it a bit more.
Yeah, so what does that sound like?
Yeah, good idea. So this is neck pickup with no compression. And then with compression. So I've got mine set up to be a little bit louder and a little bit brighter.
Yeah.
So if I maybe play an intro riff and I'll play it with and without.
Yeah.
So that was without, this is with.
Yeah.
So you'll hear the sound, it is a little bit louder, but it's a little bit fuller and fatter, and it's just a much more consistent level. A compressor, because it's also squashing your signal, tends to add sustain as well. So if you were to play a note without a compressor, you hear it starts dropping off and dying away. And the compressor can just sustain the note a little bit longer, because it's trying to keep, as the note's getting quieter, the compressor is actively trying to push it up and keep it louder. So with the compressor. You can see it just sits there for a little bit longer, which, especially on those intro riffs, those clean guitar parts, that can help it for consistency.
Yeah.
So from the compressor then, I'm running into several different overdrive and distortion pedals. So these are really important because modern worship music is so dynamic. You can start off, really quiet, just an intro riff, clean guitar, the verse, maybe the acoustic guitar comes in, first chorus, it might be a down chorus, verse 2, the drums are in, second chorus, you've gone up the octave jump and everyone's in playing nice and loud. So the reason you might have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drive pedals, partly for tonal options, because they don't all sound the same, and partly for sitting in different dynamic points in the song. So if I was to play clean, and if I turn on one of my drive pedals, so this is the full drive 2, off again, it doesn't add loads of volume, just adds a little bit of drive, adds some body and fullness to the sound. And again, I don't tend to use purely clean sounds too much. For me, I tend to leave that pedal on all the time. So actually, just adds a little more fullness, a little bit of crispness almost to the sound. And again,
probably just your basic drive that you leave on throughout the whole.
Nearly all the time. And then again, all of my drives are what we'd say quite low gain, so I don't have loads of overdrive on one pedal. I have several pedals with a little bit, and we do what's called stacking pedals, which is basically turning more pedals on. And because they've all got a little bit of drive on, that can add up and still not be too much. Whereas if I have one pedal that's maxed out on gain and I try to add more drives to that, that's just going to end up sounding too distorted, a bit too uncontrollable. You might start getting feedback. So if I was to start stacking pedals, so I'll go from clean. And
so the clone pedal will be something like a tube screamer type?
So the full drive is a tube screamer kind of circuit. It's got a few more options. And then the clon is It's a clone. Can't afford a real one.
Yeah.
The Klon is a boost. It's quite nasally. It's got a specific EQ.
Okay. Yeah.
I tend to use it before the tube screamer to add more gain on the tube screamer rather than more volume.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was, 4 different sounds: clean, full drive with boost, and the Klon on top.
Yeah.
So I've got 4 different gain stages to fit in with different parts of a song.
Yeah.
So I might use all of those together in like a big bridge section.
Yeah.
So if I was to play something like Living Hope, like the bridge or the chorus of that. I can remember the chords. Yeah. And there's just a lot of power behind that sound. It's a very strong sound, so that's going to sit really well with the band when you've got a bass player and a drummer really building up and trying to add lots of energy to that moment. That's going to sit really well with them.